On today's show, we've got our first look at All-Star voting. Who is a bigger gripe, Darius Garland or Jarrett Allen? Is neither of them were in the top 10 for their respective position. Plus, we'll take a look at the month of January and see what the Cavs have to prove, or maybe what we can learn about them this upcoming month. We'll do all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today, making it your first listen every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All-Star voting first returns came out on Thursday afternoon. The Cavs got some good news. The Cavs got some bad news. We'll start with the good news here. But Donovan Mitchell was ranked second amongst Eastern Conference guards in terms of voting, and Evan Mobley was ranked 10th in terms of Eastern Conference Frontcourt players in terms of voting. I think that both of those guys are going to be in the All-Star game. I think Donovan Mitchell likely will be a starter in the All-Star game, and I know that these first returns aren't something that's set in stone. We still have a long way to go before we actually have the All-Star teams named. Like, there's a lot of basketball left to be played before we figure out who is actually an All-Star and who isn't. But I do think that these early returns give us a pretty good idea of what these teams are going to look like. Like, for instance, the top three players in the front court for the Eastern Conference were Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, and Karl Anthony Towns. At this point, I would be very surprised if those are not the three starters for the Eastern Conference. We don't know exactly how these rosters are going to look because it's going to be a different format, but just for the sake of naming All-Star teams, those are the three guys that I do think will be the quote-unquote starters for the East. In the backcourt, I think that seeing Donovan Mitchell at number 2 amongst guards is a really good sign for him to be a starter, because I think that with the fan vote mattering 50%, and then the player vote matters 25%, and media vote matters 25%. I think that Donovan's going to get a lot of respect from players and from media, partially because of the start that the Cavs have gotten off to. I don't know that the players always take this as seriously as they probably should. Like, when those voting results are released in early February, I think is when they'll come out. Maybe late January. I don't know the exact dates right now. But when those come out, like, you will see guys will vote for their teammates, and you'll see random players getting like 3 All-Star votes that are like bench players on bad teams that you would not ever anticipate being someone that ever gets an All-Star vote. But those are the types of things that happen with the player vote. But I have no reason to think that Donovan Mitchell is not going to be pretty highly respected from his peers when it comes to that. And I do think that especially the media, while I think that's the group that takes this the most seriously, I know a lot of people that do have votes, and I know a lot of people put in a ton of work to make sure that they get it right, or that they feel like they get it right. And it's not to say you're always going to agree with them, but I think that that's the group that does the most homework for this, that they feel the most responsibility to elect who they believe are the proper All-Stars. And I think a lot of people in those two categories are going to look at the Cavs, whatever the record will be at that time. Like, I would be stunned considering they have, Boston is playing right now against Minnesota. I don't know the results of that game as I record this, but the Cavs entered Thursday. I don't know what day it is, because New Year's Eve, New Year's Day totally screwed me up. Like, it feels like a Tuesday. It's actually Thursday as we record this. You're listening to this on Friday. It feels so weird. This week is all out of whack. Like, it just does not make sense in my brain. But as I'm recording this, the Cavs started today with a 5-game lead in the Eastern Conference. I don't know if that lead is still going to be 5 by the time the All-Star break arrives, but with how good the Cavs have played and kind of how not great the Celtics have played lately, I would be surprised if the Cavs are not the first place team in the East, which would also mean Kenny Atkinson. And I didn't plan on getting into this today, but it also means the Cavs coaching staff would be the all-star coaching staff, or I guess one of them. Again, we don't know how this is going to work entirely because of the new format, but it would be some type of honor for Kenny Atkinson and his staff. But I do think that winning will matter as far as the voting goes in terms of Donovan Mitchell. I do think that he's going to be a starter. I think that he deserves to be a starter. I was a little pleasantly surprised to see him as number 2 in the fan vote. I thought Jalen Brunson might have been ahead of him just because New York is such a big market and the Knicks have played really well. I think the Knicks will have 2 All-Stars. I think they deserve to have 2 All-Stars. I expected Jalen Brunson to be ahead of Donovan Mitchell. I would vote for Donovan Mitchell over Jalen Brunson if I had a vote, and I don't. But I was surprised that the fan voting had it in the order that it did. Now, the one thing in the backcourt, while we stick here for a second, that's really bad news for the Cavs if you're looking to have both Donovan and Darius Garland in the All-Star game. The thing that I think is the worst news that Cavs fans got today with that was that LaMelo Ball was number 1 in the fan vote. Because if you are number 1 in the fan vote, and I don't expect LaMelo to be very high in the media vote, I think that'll probably get more vote from players than media. But he is somebody that if he is number 1 in the fan vote, it's hard for me to see him as somebody that's not going to be a starter in the backcourt, just because that fan vote is so heavily weighted, and he's not somebody that, truthfully, I think deserves to even be an all-star this year. He's only played 22 games. Yeah, his counting stats are nice, but he turns the ball over a ton. He's not a very efficient player. I think he's an empty calories player. Like, I don't think that LaMelo Ball is a winning player. I don't think he's somebody, and listen, he's flashy. Like, he is a star. There's no doubt about that. But when I think of guys that deserve to be honored as all-stars for what they've done on the floor, LaMelo Ball is nowhere near that conversation for me this year. It's not to say he can't get there. It's not to say maybe he hasn't been there in the past in his career. But this year, he's not somebody that jumps out to me and says that guy deserves to be honored amongst the best players in the NBA, but fans love him. He's got a huge following on social media. He's been in the spotlight for what feels like a decade at this point. He's very well known. He's got a huge fan base internationally too, which really does matter when you have these conversations, because there are a lot of people internationally that don't live in the United States that vote for these things. I mean, go back and look a couple years back at how Andrew Wiggins made the All-Star game. It was because there was a huge international vote for him, partially something to do with a K-pop group that endorsed him over in Asia, and their fans voted for Andrew Wiggins, and that's a big reason why he made the All-Star game. I'm not saying that is exactly what's happening with LaMelo Ball, but I do think that that fan vote is just overwhelming because he's such a popular player, even though he's much more sizzle than substance. So I think that's bad news if you expect Darius Garland to be an all-star. I think Darius deserves to be an all-star much more than LaMelo Ball does, but the spots start to fill up pretty quickly. So if LaMelo Ball is an all-star, that's a spot that's taken away. Donovan Mitchell, I expect to be an all-star. I do think that he deserves it over Darius Garland right now. I don't think it's that big of a gap, but I think he deserves it there. Jalen Brunson is going to be an all-star. Damian Lillard probably will be an all-star if he's healthy. Cade Cunningham, I think, deserves to be an all-star. Trae Young is somebody that I think is kind of on the fence. I don't think he deserves to be an all-star, but it's really hard. He's a hard guy to turn down. So you're looking there. I just named off 6 guards before getting to Darius Garland. And I'm not saying that all of those guys have a better case than Garland to be in the all-star game. I think that Garland has a better case than some of them. But you look at that list and you just run out of spots really quickly. You run out of spots really, really quickly. And that is something, and there are only 12 roster spots in the All-Star game. It's not like a real NBA roster where you've got 15 spots plus 3 two-ways. You can't have 18 guys on an All-Star roster for whatever reason. It doesn't make sense to me, but the spots are so limited to where I think Darius Garland might run out of room. And that is something that, I think it's a bummer because he's had, in my opinion, the best season of his career. Now, the lift for him maybe hasn't been as heavy as it was the year he made an All-Star game, the year before Donovan Mitchell arrived back in 2022. That All-Star game was played here in Cleveland. But I do think that he's been a better basketball player this year, and I think that he deserves the honor. I would expect him to truthfully finish a little bit higher in the media voting than any of the other categories. I don't know how the players are going to treat him in terms of their voting in this, but to see him not in the top 10 amongst fan voting, I thought was really disappointing because I don't think there's a world in which Darius Garland has not been a top 10 guard in the NBA this season. And it's not just top 10 in the NBA for voting, it's top 10 in the Eastern Conference. Like, you can go down that list of, who is where in terms of voting in the East. And there are several guys that I look at and say, man, Darius Garland's having a better season than that guy, where I would rather have Darius Garland than that guy. I think that list it's pretty substantial. The number of guys like Tyrese Maxey, I would rather have Darius Garland this year than what Tyrese Maxey has done. Jordan Poole belongs nowhere near an All-Star game. He should not be allowed in the same city the All-Star games are being played in during the All-Star break. He's up there. Tyler Hero, Darius Garland's having a better year than him. Derek White, Darius Garland is a better basketball player than Derek White. He's having a better season. Like, he belongs on this list. So I was a little disappointed to see him not there. I was a little surprised that he didn't have more fan support so far this season. The front court, I was pleasantly surprised about Evan Mobley. I wasn't very surprised, however, about Jarrett Allen. I'll talk about those two next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL playoffs almost here. It's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways to pick up a win this season. Maybe you like the Baltimore Ravens minus 20 points against the Cleveland Browns on Saturday as that season comes to a merciful finish. That's one of the biggest spreads. I think that's the biggest point spread in an NFL game since like 2021. I saw a stat somewhere floating around that the Browns are a bigger underdog on Saturday, in this game than they were in any of the games during their 0-16 season in 2017. That's a ridiculous stat. It speaks to where the Browns are at. It also kind of speaks to their goals. Like, they don't want to win. I know where I'm going with my credits on FanDuel right now, and that would be to the Orange Bowl, going to be played a week from Thursday. As you can see, I'm wearing a Notre Dame hoodie. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, if you didn't know. So watching them kick the crap out of Georgia was awesome on Thursday night. Maybe I'm going to go to the Orange Bowl. I don't know, but Notre Dame favored by 1.5 over Penn State as that line opens up on FanDuel. I like the Irish in that one. I really do. They kind of starting to feel like a little bit of a team of destiny. So maybe if you do too, put $5 on it, and if they win next week, you could get $250 in bonus bets. Just head on over to FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com today to join, and you could get your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show right now on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Also, Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one-stop ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. So, talked about the backcourt. Donovan Mitchell, great first return. Darius Garland, very disappointed that he was not in the top 10 for Eastern Conference guards on that first return. In the front court, Evan Mobley was 10th amongst front court players in the Eastern Conference, 145,000 plus votes for him. I think this is a really good sign. I never expected Evan to make the All-Star game as a starter. I don't know that he deserves to be a starter, truthfully, but I do think that he's going to be in this game. I was pleasantly surprised because Evan was somebody that I looked at, and his game is getting a little flashier, but he's not what I would call a flashy player, right? Like, he's not somebody that's going to have highlight play after highlight play, especially offensively. Like, he's going to do his job. He's going to rack up stats. He's going to be awesome. He's going to impact winning, but he's not somebody that you see, and he's doing more of it, but historically, he's not somebody that is just all over the offensive highlights. His highlights more so come on the defensive end, and that isn't necessarily something that sells, right? But I was pleasantly surprised to see him in the top 10. I think that's a great sign for him getting his first All-Star nod. He has been awesome this year. He deserves to be an All-Star. I don't think he's going to be a starter, but at this point, with him being in the top 10, I think it's a really good sign too, because players, I do think, are going to have a lot of respect for Evan in the All-Star voting process. And I think that the media is going to treat him really well, because I think that if you watch the Cavs, you know just how impactful he's been on both ends. And yes, Kenny Atkinson deserves a lot of credit for this team going from a 48-win team last year to 29-4 in the first 33 games this year. But Evan Mobley taking the giant leap forward that he's taken so far has been one of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest reason, why that has happened. And I think Mobley is going to get rewarded appropriately with an all-star appearance. Now, on the flip side, Jarrett Allen was not in the top 10. I actually did not have an issue with this. Like, I think Jarrett Allen lately has played some of his best basketball. Like that game against the Lakers on Tuesday night may be the best basketball game he's played as a member of the Cavs. I think Jarrett Allen has been really good, but I also think that he's been the fourth best player on this Cavs team. And I think that he's gone through stretches where he's gone through like a couple week periods at a time where he's just not playing great basketball. The Cavs are still winning, and I'm not saying that he's been bad, but he hasn't played at an all-star level consistently. He's had flashes where he's played at an all-star level, no doubt about that. He's had flashes where he's played at an all-NBA level, like Tuesday night. But I don't think he's been consistent enough at that all-star level you need to be at to be in the top 10. Plus, with the fan vote, like, is Jarrett Allen somebody that, and I'm not talking about Cavs fans, because obviously Cavs fans are going to vote for him. Cavs fans should vote for him. That's a big part of fandom, right? Like, that's the fun part of that. But I don't think that he's somebody that you look at if you're a fan of, just say, I don't know, say you are a fan of the Houston Rockets and you're looking across the league and you see the Cavs are 29-4. You see what Donovan Mitchell's been doing. You see what Darius Garland's been doing. Evan Mobley's been doing. Like, those guys maybe are going to get your vote. Certainly Mitchell and Mobley. But I think that across the league, Jarrett Allen is a bit of an afterthought, especially by fans, because he's somebody that does a lot of the dirty work. He does it well, but especially offensively, I don't want to say he's been minimized this year, but he hasn't been as involved as he has been in years past because of the way the Cavs are operating. And because for Evan Mobley to take a step up, Jarrett Allen needed to take a step back, and he's done that. He's done it very graciously, and that's a big reason why the Cavs have been able to be so successful, is because Jarrett Allen has been willing to do that. But I also think in the end that kind of results in maybe not being an all-star. And I think that's kind of the boat Jarrett Allen's going to be in. I would be surprised if he is an all-star. I don't think that the Cavs are going to get 4 all-stars. I know what you're saying. Well, the Atlanta Hawks in 2015 got 4 all-stars. They did. That was a really weird year. They also went 17-0 in January. And I'm actually writing about that comparison for my Substack, The Inside Shot. That should be coming out today at some point if you're watching or listening to this on Friday. But I don't think the Cavs are going to be there. I think that they're going to get 2 for sure. Darius Garland, I think, deserves to be an all-star. But after seeing the first voting returns and seeing LaMelo Ball as high as he is in the voting, I would be surprised at this point if the Cavs got 3 all-stars. I think all 3 of those guys deserve it, but I would be surprised if all 3 of those guys end up with an all-star nod. They've all played well enough. And I think the Cavs as a team, like, to have 3 all-stars, I think you kind of have to be pretty good as a team. You can't be a team that, and let's just use the New York Knicks as an example here. The Knicks have been really good. The Knicks have played awesome basketball lately. They're 24-10. That's a team that they will get 2 all-stars. They deserve 2 all-stars, but I don't think that they've played basketball at the level to get 3 all-stars. I think you can say the same thing about the Boston Celtics. The only difference with the Celtics is they just won a championship last year. And I think that holds a little bit of credence here. I'm not saying the Celtics deserve that this year. I don't think they have 3 players that are worthy of an all-star nod this year. I think there are 2 teams in the NBA that have played well enough to merit 3 all-stars. I think it's the Cavs, and I think it's Oklahoma City. I don't think OKC is going to get 3 all-stars. I don't think the Cavs will either, even though the Cavs absolutely have 3 guys that are more than deserving, in my opinion at least, of being named an all-star in the Eastern Conference. Well, the Cavs are starting a new month. And what can we learn about them in January? I'll tell you the one big thing that I really want to see from the Cavs this month, next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by GameTime. And folks, I have to be honest with you, I spent some time on GameTime earlier this evening. If you can guess where I'm going with this, if you're watching on YouTube, because of the sweatshirt I'm wearing, it's a Notre Dame sweatshirt. Notre Dame beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl on Thursday nights, and now they're going to be playing in the Orange Bowl against Penn State in Miami, Florida next Thursday. And you know what I want to do as a diehard Notre Dame fan that has waited my entire life for them to win a big game? I want to go to the big game in Florida at the Orange Bowl against Penn State. So you know what I did today? I went on Game Time because I'm starting to look at the markets. Am I going to fly down to Florida for this game? I don't know if I am or not, but I know if I do, where I'm going to get my tickets from, and that is Game Time, because they've got the best tickets. They've got the best deals. They make it easy for you to get tickets to your favorite events, whether it's a game, comedy show, concert. I don't know what you want to see, but I know you want to go see it. They have Game Time picks, and that feature filters out all the fluff that you don't want to see to only show you incredible deals on great seats. That's what I'm going to be using if I buy tickets to go watch Notre Dame play Penn State. You don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. And with less than a week before that game, I don't have time to search through thousands of tickets. I need to use Game Time picks if I'm going to be going there. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I can't do that. I've already used Game Time, but you can if you want to go to this game. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're listening to this right now, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, make sure you give it a 5-star rating, and make sure you tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. I need to make sure you're subscribed, and I need to make sure that a friend is subscribed, because the Cavs are the best team in basketball, and you need to be hearing about them every single day. So the month of January has arrived. The Cavs are playing their first January game tonight in Dallas against the Mavericks, and they've got 15 games this month. 8 of those games are against teams that are 500 or better. The Cavs have 3 back-to-backs this month. They have a back-to-back against OKC and Toronto next Wednesday and Thursday, a back-to-back in Philly and then home against Houston, and a back-to-back in Miami at home against Atlanta. I think that Miami-Atlanta back-to-back is probably the toughest one because it's got the most travel. The OKC-Toronto back-to-back is a home-home back-to-back. Both those games are in Cleveland. Going from Philly to Cleveland for a back-to-back is really not that difficult, but going from Miami to Cleveland for a back-to-back against an Atlanta team that I don't necessarily like, I disagree with the assessment that they've given the Cavs problems. Yeah, they beat the Cavs twice. You know what? I think the Cavs kind of played bad in those games. I think Atlanta's an okay team. Yeah, they've got some wing defenders that are solid, but I don't look at them and say, man, that's a matchup nightmare for the Cavs. No, the Cavs had a couple of really bad nights. I think that the OKC games, and they play OKC twice this month. One of them is next Wednesday, and then a week after that, or a week and a day after that. So 2 games in an 8-day stretch against OKC. Those are measuring stick games. Those are games I am incredibly excited to watch. Just as a basketball fan, I think it's going to be incredible. I'm super happy that those games got boosted to being nationally televised. I believe the one on Wednesday in Cleveland is on ESPN, and then the one the week after in OKC is going to be a TNT game on a Thursday night. But I think that all of America needs to be watching those games, and I think that those are games where, you know, I said I don't know how much there was to learn about the Cavs going out west for this trip, and they've looked really good. I don't know that we've learned anything about them other than they just continue to be dominant. But when they play OKC, that's a game that I'm looking at as, okay, that's a game that could be a finals preview. Like I have hotel rooms booked in Oklahoma City for June, because I think that this could be an NBA finals preview. That is a game I'm super excited to watch. I think OKC is an awesome team. I think the Cavs are an awesome team. Those should be 2 really, really great games to watch. And the thing that I'm most interested in learning about the Cavs is, do they get better from month to month again? This team very clearly was a really good team in November. They didn't play defense all that well. Offensively, they were elite, but defensively, they weren't great. In December, they were an elite team on both ends of the floor. They were number 1 in offense. They were number 3 in defense. You cannot improve on your ranking offensively anymore. Like, if the Cavs are number 1 in January again on offense, they didn't move up the ranking. Now they can get better. They can put up a better offensive rating. I don't know if they will. I think that's a pretty lofty expectation. And I don't know how much room they have to improve defensively, but I do wonder, are there other areas on the margins where they can improve from December to January? Because they very much did improve from November to December. And I do think it's going to be interesting whether or not this team keeps getting better. I don't think that they've peaked, but I do think at a certain point, it could make sense for there to be some regression. It is a really, really long season. We're not even halfway through this season. There's a lot of basketball left to be played. And this team does have NBA championship aspirations. They plan on playing into and through the middle of June. That means there's even more basketball to be playing than just completing the regular season, all 82 games of that. But I do wonder, at what point does everything catch up to them? Do they become a team that, okay, maybe we're going to have 2 weeks where we're not bad, but we're not at our best. That could happen at some point. Maybe it happens in January. Maybe it doesn't happen at all. I don't know. But I am most interested in seeing, okay, the Cavs have been really good all year. They were great in December. December was by far the best month that this team had. Can they be better in January? And then I'll be asking the same thing in February. Can they be better in February than they were the month of January? Because I think that a lot of this is about growth. It's about how this team grows together and improving from month to month. I just think that there's some good benchmarks to hit. And if they look better, if I'm having the conversation when I do a show at the start of February that kind of wraps up what they've done in the month of January, and if I can sit here and say this Cavs team got better, I think that'll be a really, really good sign as to just how serious of championship contenders they are. I think they're a pretty serious championship contender. I think they're in that top tier with OKC and with Boston. Can they maybe separate themselves from Boston? Like maybe that is something that happens in January before they take on the Celtics again, February 4th at home. That could be a thing to watch too. Like how much have they done in this month to maybe make that game? I don't want to say not important because it's going to be important and there are going to be a lot of eyes on it, but not a game that's super consequential to where, if the Cavs don't win this game, they might not be the 1 seed. Like that is a thing that very much does interest me. Other news and notes I want to get to. Evan Mobley. He was named Defensive Player of the Month in the Eastern Conference. He is the first player in Cavs history to take home this award. Why is he the first player in Cavs history to do it? Because it's the second time this award's ever been given out. It's a new award this year. He did not win it in the first month. He won it for the month of December. And a lot of this was the Cavs had the best defense in the Eastern Conference. I mentioned they were third in the NBA. The 2 teams that were better than them defensively during December were OKC and Minnesota. Obviously, those are 2 Western Conference teams. But Evan Mobley took home that honor. I think it's deserved. I think he's been awesome on that end. He is really, I truly think one of the 3 best defensive players in basketball, along with Jaren Jackson, who won it on the West side, and Victor Wembanyama, who is a super heavy favorite at FanDuel to win Defensive Player of the Year. And then Kenny Atkinson won Coach of the Month for the month of December. He also won this award in November, so he's gone back-to-back months. I could not find odds on this award on FanDuel. I don't know that they have odds for it. If they do, they're not available in Ohio. But Kenny, I would have to think is a very heavy favorite to win this award. What he's done with this team has been remarkable. The way he's gotten them to play, not just in terms of the wins and losses, but the style and what this group has bought into with what he's preaching has been really impressive. He's done a fantastic job as head coach of the Cavs. I think that this is a very, very well-deserved honor for Kenny. Obviously, the second time it's happened for him since taking over as head coach of the Cavs. So tonight, Cavs take on the Dallas Mavericks. It is their 4th and final game of this 4-game West Coast road trip. They're looking to go 4-0. No Luka Doncic for Dallas. Sam Merrill listed as doubtful. I would not expect him to play. Isaac Okoro still out for the Cavs. We'll see if the Cavs can make it 4-0. They've played great basketball. Dallas not playing their best basketball right now. The Cavs, as I record this, there's not a betting line out, but I would imagine will be heavy favorites in this game. And then they come home Sunday to take on the Charlotte Hornets. I will be back tomorrow with another edition of Locked on Cavs talking about tonight's game against the Dallas Mavericks. So like I said earlier, if you're listening to this, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you are subscribed. Tell a friend to subscribe as well. And then if you're feeling up to it, give me that 5-star rating, leave me a nice review as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. Again, Cavs continue their West Coast trip tonight. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the Cavs and the Mavs.